Hey guys, we are in day 87 in our Bible reading plan, John 7 through 9 and Psalm 87. A great reading today. In fact, it's fun to be in the Old Testament and in the New because many of you are familiar with the Feast of Booths, the Feast of Tabernacle. It's one of the feasts that we learned back when we covered Leviticus. Let me remind you though, that is the week where they celebrated the fact that they were not going to live in tents forever, but also God's provision for them in the time of the wilderness for 40 years. They celebrated once a year in the fall for 7 days. And during those 7 days in John chapter 7, the religious leaders would go to the temple and pour water on the altar, and sort of this reminder of what happened in the wilderness where the rock was struck and water gushed out and God faithfully provided for them, but also a look forward to the coming of the Messiah who would be the living water who would save them. So this is happening that week. And on day 8, so 7 days of the feast was like sort of the solemn time, and then the 8th day was the celebration. And so Jesus initially, his brothers taught him, like, go up, fear the one, make yourself known, do all the miracles. And Jesus knows that there's a time, and so he's not concerned about impressing the people with his works because he's following his Father's timeline. And by the way, a small reminder, throughout the reading, throughout the Gospel of John, we see a theme repeated, which is though they wanted to kill him often, they couldn't because it wasn't yet the Father's time. And so rest assured that God has a timetable for your life too. And nothing will happen outside of that. No one can touch you. No one can block his plans for you or force you to do something that is outside of his timeline for you. So let's be sensitive to the Spirit there. But on the 8th day, Jesus stands up in John 7, verse 37, and he, again, the timing is so essential. It was the 8th day that Jesus would stand up and say, I am the living water. And so that was not, lost on them. He was declaring that he is the Messiah, and yet they miss it. And so the big idea today really hints at that you can have all the head knowledge in the world, but until you see that Jesus is the Christ, you are still blind. And the religious leaders missed it. Many missed it, but some saw. The woman who was condemned, who received forgiveness, saw. The blind man that we read about today, who the Lord opened his eyes. By the way, the fact that he took the from the ground, the mud, and it was so reminiscent of Genesis and how the Lord created us, and he gives the man his sight. And may we have sight. That should be our prayer, that God would open our eyes to see him clearly. And everyone was debating whether the sin of their parents or the sin of the man or whatever was the cause of this man's blindness, but it was indeed God to declare his glory. And so this man got it, and his eyes were opened, and he put his faith in Christ in that season. And I love that we see that the moment that Jesus interacts with these people and they come to faith, whether it's the woman caught in adultery or the man born blind, the shame is gone, the guilt is gone, there is forgiveness, there's change. And where the community rejects the blind man, Jesus receives him. If you don't feel like you belong, if you feel the sting of rejection, if you feel the weight of shame, if you feel the guilt of your past, let it go as you put your faith in Christ. That's the only way to be free, and that's the only way to see clearly, is to ask God, open our eyes that we may see, and help us to rejoice that you are the water that never runs dry. I want that water, don't you? Love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.